significant financial challenges lately. Some people believe that NYCHA should be paying the city for police, should not be paying the city for police and fire protection, excuse me. Some have argued that that money could go into capital improvements and repairs. What are your ideas for alternative revenue sources for NYCHA, and where should that money go? We'll start on the end with Mr. Sweeney.
I believe currently NYCHA spends a whole lot of money basically on police patrol. It's coming out of their budget. I think it's like $90 million or some crazy amount of money to just police the area. But when you start talking about NYCHA, are they offloading these buildings? I mean, there's some pressure on NYCHA where this past administration just felt that NYCHA cannot manage these buildings. Look at the maintenance problem that they have. Are there, I guess the controller will help us out a lot when they start looking at where the money is being spent. Has there been any waste? But when you have to police these homes, I mean these buildings, and it's costing you, they're costing the budget, it's exploding the budget, that's a problem. NYCHA has, for many years, I grew up in NYCHA. I know how buildings get damaged, the elevators are constantly broken. They need to do a better job at maintaining, providing a better maintenance service plan for folks over there. And we have to figure out a way to just reduce this cost as far as the crime and the policing over there. And I mean, if the city is providing, if we have police officers, firefighters, and there's an issue with NYCHA, NYCHA shouldn't be paying for that. That's part of the public policy. But they do spend a lot of money on policing and trying to keep things safe over there. The maintenance is ridiculous, as you've seen on television. It almost seems like they're not doing anything. You know, when you have to look at who's doing the maintenance work, you got to look at the contracts that they're putting out, how these contracts get ballooned from one cost to another. I think they need to look at, we need to look at NYCHA on how they're spending their money, where can they save some money, and make sure that they're doing the right thing for the tenants that live there. Elevator broken constantly, same maintenance people going there, ballooning the cost. That's the problem there, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Foy.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney is right on a couple of points I would like to correct. Last year, NYCHA paid or reimbursed NYPD some $75 million for policing public housing. And what did the NYPD do with that money? They engaged in constitutionally unconstitutional policing tactics, like vertical patrols, like sweeping stop and frisks, like home invasions and other things, for lack of a better word. What needs to happen with NYCHA is not co-locating luxury housing on public property. That's just unacceptable. That's an unacceptable alternative. That's an unacceptable revenue stream. What needs to happen is a top to bottom review of NYCHA management. NYCHA would be a city unto itself with 500,000 people in public housing in New York City, larger than the city of Atlanta. We need to fight for equitable funding from HUD. All of our HUD funding has been slashed. We need to find cost savings in our contracting, sending out contracts that are not returning a result, bringing back a positive return on those contractual obligations. And we need to shorten our maintenance turnaround. The average turnaround is 18 to 24 months for a maintenance ticket. And what that does is it causes cost overruns as well. We've recently seen how NYCHA has misappropriated or did not allocate properly the funding that it received and had to provide security cameras and additional security measures in NYCHA. So we have a problem of management. We do have a revenue problem, but we have a management problem. And so we cannot disconnect or divorce the two. We need to have a competent management team who's focused on delivering services to the residents, but we also need to have increased revenues, the revenues that we are entitled to from housing and urban development to support the 500,000 New Yorkers that live and reside in public housing. There is a program called Section 3, which the federal government
30
mandates, where the federal government mandates that certain contracts be given to the residents of NYCHA, that they be trained and empowered on how to secure these contracts. That in and of itself would begin to generate revenues, both for residents, but also for NYCHA. So we need full enforcement of Section 3, which is a federally mandated program that would do wonders for turning around many of the conditions in NYCHA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. Mr. Corning.
So unfortunately, over the last couple of years, I've spent an inordinate amount of time in the developments in our community trying to mitigate some of these very same circumstances. Most recently in Marcy, with them losing gas services and not being able to cook. So it seems like it's just one thing after another as it relates to people who are living in a low-income situation. Section 3, as mentioned earlier, is an excellent opportunity for us to have some cost savings and have some a competitive bid process. Right now, that's not available. So the abuses that we've seen are related to only having one source to go to for maintenance. So anybody in my home, we have an opportunity to choose who we're going to get to repair and make sure that the cost is efficient and those kinds of things. NYCHA doesn't have that. I've had an opportunity from a city council perspective to sit with John Rea on several occasions to discuss the backlog of repairs. And although they've said that they're working diligently to mitigate some of those do cause, like mentioned before, serious cost overruns. And when you're not on top of the maintenance, we have developments here in Bed-Stuy which have literal holes in the roof. So they've had to move out the entire top floor of buildings in Weeksville because those tenants could no longer remain there. Had it been that there was a scheduled maintenance that allowed for upkeep, we wouldn't be. So we find ourselves in an urgent situation based on there not being a regularly scheduled maintenance plan for NYCHA. So I think with a competitive bid process, with better oversight, 1% of those scheduled who are ready for that competitive Section 3 portion have been given contracts. And I think it gives an incentive for people to do better, as well as offers an opportunity for better oversight and better maintenance in the developments.
Thank you, Mr. Corning. Reverend Tiller.
One of the historic problems with public housing in this country is that funds have often been allocated to build public housing, but not adequate funds have been allocated to maintain them. My grandfather was a manager in one of the most notorious and infamous housing projects in the United States of America, the Pruitt-Igoe projects in St. Louis. It's a classic story, and it raises the question, how do we view NYCHA housing? How do we view the residents of NYCHA? Yes, we must press the federal government. We must press HUD to make more monies available, that NYCHA housing may be maintained on a regular scheduled maintenance program. Yes, we have to increase the people who will actually have an opportunity to provide the maintenance. If we need to make that a more competitive process, then we have to do that. Because one of the things that we've learned is that when there's no competition, there is great waste. When a process is not open, there is a great possibility for malfeasance, and that's what we see. But more importantly, how do we view NYCHA housing? When we hear the mayor, who has been so punitive, criminalizing, viewing NYCHA residents as less than residents of other city and public buildings. It's wrong to tell people what kind of dogs that they can have, to say that we want to introduce fingerprint entry into NYCHA housing, to talk about people who have gone to prison and then have to come home to the communities that they were raised in, to make it difficult for them to do that, says to me that we're not very compassionate toward people in public housing. I lived in public housing in my life.